What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are going to talk about psychological safety. Why are we talking about psychological safety, you may ask? Because I took a workshop at the EWMC National Leadership Conference, and the workshop that I took was on psychological safety, and I took some notes, and I think that there's some interesting information in my notes and some useful information for us to glean from, and hopefully spark an interest in you to dive deeper into the subject matter and find resources in your area that could help your community deal with a lot of the outside stimuli that tends to drive us all so very crazy, and uncertainty tends to have an effect on that type of emotional balance. So let's dive on in. Psychological safety. One of the things that we discussed was the question, what creates safety? And so there was a little work group, and we all kind of came up with a list. And so one of the things that creates safety is personal boundaries. And I think you would agree with that. Personal boundaries, giving you that bubble where people don't invade that space and makes you feel safe. Support structures. Again, this one is a big one because when you have a support structure, you're less afraid of falling down. You know what I mean? You'll take more initiative and more risk because you know that you have a supportive structure that's going to help you. And so that's a big one. Financial stability. How can anyone feel safe if they're financially unsecure? There's too many questions with poverty that clearly take away from feeling safe. Clear communications. Again, I think that's a good one because when you communicate clearly, everybody knows what's expected, and so everybody's working together. You'll have better outcomes. That's got to increase safety. Another one was patience increases safety, and I agree with that one because when you don't have patience, you tend to fly off the handle, and so patience is a big one. And then freedom increases safety. We talked about things that affect your everyday, like culture, and how does culture affect your psychological safety. And it says culture shapes identity and it shapes the community. Culture influences communication and interaction. It can guide behavior and decision making and reflects historical and social evolution. The culture that you surround yourself can make or break you. And so we have to be cognizant of what we allow in our presence. I always like to say, and I tell my kids this, I always tell them, people are going to treat you however you allow for them to treat you. So I think that's a very, very big thing in life, is to make sure that you keep your interactions respectful and in a good way. And that'll change the culture around you. How do we shape culture narratives? They say you do it through the telling of history, memory, experience, the words that you use, and the trust that you have in the information that you're getting. We actually defined psychological safety in the workshop, and they defined it as when one is not afraid to take interpersonal risks, to speak up, to disagree openly, to surface concerns without fear of negative repercussions or being shamed by team members. So psychological safety is basically feeling safe enough to be your authentic self without judgment. 5 steps for increasing psychological safety or for achieving psychological safety. You got to have respectful communication. Always try to respectfully put your ideas out there, your arguments, your disagreements in a respectful way. Respectful communication is everything. It involves tone, tact, and timing. So you gotta be thoughtful when you're communicating. Trust and transparency. Without trust, we don't truly collaborate. We merely coordinate, or at best, we cooperate. It is trust that transforms a group of people into a team. That's a quote by Stephen Covey. So you got to increase trust and transparency. You got to set clear expectations. You got to know, okay, this is what I'm expecting from you, so that there is no confusion. You're doing that with clear, respectful communication. you're increasing psychological safety because the person knows what's expected of them. We have to reframe failure. When we talk about reframing failure, you're talking about what is failure. Failure is when you quit, when you stop trying to accomplish a task or a goal. And so we got to look at failure and define it differently. Talk about the successes and the growth around the edges. And we also got to really drive in the narrative that you don't fail until you quit. Also, there should be a supportive and consultative approach between team members. And that should be expected. You know what I mean? You got to support your team members. You got to work together. And that's kind of how you're building for this psychological safety. What do we know about psychological stats? This part of the workshop really kind of messed with me a little bit because you don't really put this much thought into it, especially in construction. You always think that we're all the toughest, roughest, but it's not true. 4,000 to 5,000 suicides a year happen in the construction industry. 1 in 2 construction workers has a diagnosable mental illness. 1 in 2. Generally, men die by suicide 3 times more than women. And here's one that you might not know. White men account for 7 out of 10 suicides in the year 2020 on average. The suicide rate is highest in middle-aged white men. And the rate is 4 times higher in construction. We have to be cognizant of how we treat each other. We have to really take an approach where we care about our coworkers and our siblings that are working next to us. Take an interest in each other outside of the nuts and bolts of getting a job done. Be there for each other. That's what a brotherhood is. We have to build this thing up again because we've allowed it to die away. Are there members that really take it to heart and really feel like I'm my brother's keepers? Yes. Are there far too many members that don't see it that way and are here just for the fast buck and only care about what they care about because they're going to get theirs and however you make out is up to you? Yeah, we have too many of that. And the reason for that is we stopped really teaching each other about brotherhood. And this workshop really went a long ways into reframing that idea that we really got to care for each other on this construction site, especially when you look at the suicide stats. And then we touched on DEI studies and if they're effective. You know, when you have a DEI training with your company, is it even effective? There's a lot of misinformation running around, rampant, especially today, about DEI. So let's dive in. Studies have shown that DEI training alone can be effective up to about a day or 2 after training. Data also suggests that DEI can have little effect on workers' behaviors. Some trainings have the actual opposite effect, and it actually activates the biases that you're trying to educate about. What needs to be understood is that DEI is for and about everyone. Mental health is not insular or regulated to any one intersectional demographic, and we have to see beyond the labels that are being thrown at us meant to divide us. The racial tactics that are being thrown at us meant to split us up so that the very wealthy class can rob the treasury and leave us all holding the bag. And it's working if we're not careful. It's working. It's been working. We got to get past that. So what can we do about it? We can create mentorship programs or look into mentorship programs. Mental health contracting. We can have a mental health professional in our unions. Specialists in FTE, EAP programs, and Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention working together to get that taken care of. Those are my notes from the workshop, and I just want to say that the psychological safety course was amazing. And I hope you guys get interested in really building up the brotherhood and caring for one another. My name is Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember that the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there can be no union without you and I front and center. So let's go.